Hi guys, and welcome to my second Unreal Engine 4 Devcast. And there will be many more coming soon as well, because my first Devcast for Unreal Engine 4 got amazing feedback and it already got over 15,000 views. I never even imagined that a specific tutorial for a make human and how to import skeleton and humanoid characters into Unreal Engine 4 will get such a reception. So I will definitely uh, do few more devcasts or even many more. We will see. Today, my second Unreal Engine 4 devcast, I will talk about Houdini and Houdini Engine and asset creation pipeline for Unreal Engine 4. You can use the same creation for Unity. I used Houdini and Houdini Engine for Unity as well. It's pretty similar. Why I'm using Houdini? That's the question a lot of people ask me. People that know me, they know that I started with 3D Studio. Yeah, even before it was on, before there were Windows, there was a 3D Studio on DOS. And then I went through the years, I started using Maya, and lately, especially Maya LT. With Unreal Engine 4. Why switch to Houdini, a software that I didn't know anything about? I started tinkering a bit with it like a year ago, and now I'm fully switched to Houdini. Houdini offers something that none of the 3D software, other 3D software I encountered offers, and that's the Houdini engine, which is a plugin into third-party software like Unreal Engine 4 that connects the functionality of Houdini with the Unreal Engine 4 and brings the procedurality of the Houdini into Unreal Engine or Unity Engine or any or other engine. With a standard asset creation pipeline, you just, for example, creating a table, you just specify a table, tell the graphics guy how the table should look. He will model the table, export it for you using, for example, the Filmbox standard format. You import it into the engine, play with it. Okay, you have in the scene, and now, okay, I would rather have a slightly different table. For example, I want more legs, or I want the bigger table, not just scale table, just the size, one of the width, the bigger width or something. So back to the graphics guy who needs to change it in the 3D software, export it and create it for you, or you want the multiple tables. So the guy needs to export all the multiple variations of the tables for you, and you import it into the into the engine to use it. With Houdini, you can bring the procedurality into the engine. The Houdini itself, the 3D software, is heavily procedural, and it's completely procedural, non-destructive creation of assets. So everything you do during the modeling of with Houdini is saved into this procedural node hierarchy that's always there, and it's non-destructive. So if you change something at the beginning that you did in the beginning and want to change it, and you go there and change it, everything that you did from there will change and recreate itself depending on the change you made at the beginning of the graph. And then you can parameterize this stuff, and you can create an interface with these parameters that you specify, which can be put into what's called a digital Houdini digital asset, and that can be imported into the engine using the Houdini engine. And all these parameters that you specified for the interface for the digital asset, then you can change in the Unreal Engine or in Unity, doesn't matter, and it will change itself on the spot inside the engine. So for example, you specify the width of the table and it will scale correctly without the need to go back to Houdini to your graphics guys, and it will simply work. That's why I switched to Houdini, and I hope I will inspire some of you guys to try it out as well. So let's show you Houdini. This is the Houdini indie version. I'm using Houdini indie, which is like $200 per year, which is really nothing. Even for indie developer, when you take into account that Maya LT costs $240 for a year, and that's the LT version of Maya, which is with the limited functionality compared to the full-fledged Maya. Houdini Indie is a full-fledged software. It has the same functionality that the Houdini FX, which is the major version of Houdini, has. It just limited in usage for. Uh, it's limited by licensing, so I think you can't go over 100,000 a year in revenue. If I had 100,000 per year in revenue, I would gladly buy the full-fledged Houdini. And then there is the Houdini Engine, which is the plugin for all the 3D software, which was $100 per year, but now it's free from this year GDC when they announced that the Houdini Engine is free, which is a great step. And you can even download the Houdini Apprentice version, which is completely free, and you can try it out and make yourself at home with Houdini, and if it's something for you, play with it, and then decide to buy any of the other versions of Houdini. So what we are going to do and create here, what I'm going to create is a table, because I think that's a great asset to show off the parameterization and how Houdini works. So I will create a geometry node, and I'll go into the node and I'll delete this, and then I will create a grid for our tabletop, which will be the size 1, 1, 2, 2. Some people asked me, because last week I had this presentation about Houdini in our company, and there were graphicians obviously, and they asked me if we need to use this approach with the nodes in Houdini. Like, it's not really artistic, as they would say. No, you don't need to use this approach. I use it because I'm a technically oriented guy, and I like the parameterization and working with the nodes. But you can approach it with the old school way or the artistic way, like create a grid here using the tool shelf, then go this polygon extrusion and work with it in the view, go with the vertex modifiers, move them if you did some sculpting. So pretty much as you would approach it in 3D Max or in Maya. And everything you did here would automatically create nodes for you. So it would generate the graph I am generating here. Everything you do is one step. It's basically procedural and non-destructive, so it would create a graph for you as well. But I'm just taking this approach to creating the graph directly, because I'm more technical than artistic at the moment, at least. So let's extrude this grid. Now I need to, oh, I ran the timeline for some reason. Now I need to switch to the extrusion, because this is what tells you which node is rendering now. So if we did this extrusion here now, we don't see any extrusion happening. Why? Because we are rendering just the grid. We go to render the extrusion. This is if you have a big tree and you are working in something in the history of the tree or in the beginning of the tree, you want to render just that part. You don't really want to render all the other parts. Anyway, we just create a back as well for our table. Now we create another grid. Again, we will switch to this node to render. It will be a bit smaller, it's for the table legs. Now we need to extrude it as well. I will reverse this right away. This will just reverse the polygon because we want to do extrusion in positive numbers, just to have correct normals basically, because I did this in the other presentation, and if we didn't reverse the polygon, we would extrude to the up, and we want to extrude down. And we could extrude down without the reverse using the negative values, but then our normals would look inside the object, not outside the object. So this is the simplest way to have correct normals at the end. And a little bit of inset on the legs. So something like this, let's say. Okay. Now we obviously want 4 legs for our table. So what we do is copy these legs, create a copy based on this grid. So the points in this grid will be used as an input to copy this into this copy node. Just a little bit of cleaning here. Now if we go here, we have 4 legs, obviously. Now they use the attributes of the points, so we will just disable the usage of point attributes. So they will be copied as is the leg we just basically created. So now it's copied. If we now merge these two, the legs will be outside of the table, obviously. So to make this tabletop a little bit bigger, what we'll do is we will extrude it, but we don't want to extrude everything. We just want to extrude these sides. So we will create a group. So all these polygons, if we disable them, these are the side polygons that are created during the extrusion from the grid. So now we tell Houdini that all these should be in a specific group, extrude side. Now that when we extrude again, poly extrude, we can specify, let's go here, we can specify which group to use. Since there is only one group at the moment, we will now extrude just the side. So now if we extrude, we are extruding just the side of the table. And now we can basically merge these. So our copied table legs with the tabletop, we will merge them, and we have a table. Now what we want to do is move the table so the pivot is basically here in the middle between the bottom of the legs, because now if we put this inside the engine, the pivot will be here, which is not really that what we want. So we will put a transform node here, and we can position it using the rendering it again. We can position it using the numbers, and we would find the number where it would be at the correct position. But then if we parameterize the legs and change the size of the legs, the pivot would be wrong again. So what we can do here is take the extrusion of the legs, copy the parameter, and just use it here, the reference to the parameter. So our transform will be always using the amount of the extrusion in the legs. So we now go and change the leg size. The pivot would be correct always, because the table would move using the transform node based on the parameter of the extrusion. Now if we want to move this into engine, what we need to do is create a digital asset. We can create digital assets from nodes, basically. So we need to subnets, they are called. We need to convert this into a subnet, which will basically just group our graph into a subnet. All kind of graphs could be grouped into subnets, and subnets can have other subnets. It's basically something like macro in Unreal, I would say. So we just select them all and press this button and create subnet from selected, and it will create a subnet for us here. We call it table, and now we can create a digital asset from it. Create digital asset. call it table. It will be saved in our documents. Accept. Oh, we have a subnode, create table. Where is it? Basically, this node is called table, so we shouldn't really use the name table. Let's call this something different. Table sub. Now we can create a digital asset from it and call it table. It will be saved in our documents. It's not in the subnode. Okay. Now we have all these different parameters we can set for our digital asset. We are not going into that now. I'm just going to show it inside an engine. So apply, accept, and just move into an engine. You can install the Houdini. You will need to install the Houdini engine for Unreal. Obviously, it can be downloaded. If you download Houdini, it will be downloaded with it. Some versions of the Houdini even install it into the Unreal Engine if it finds the Unreal Engine installed. But it's basically inside the Houdini directory as well, so we can go there and install it from there. And it's installed as a Unreal Engine plugin. So if you go to plugins and rendering components, Houdini Engine needs to be enabled, and you will see, for example, here there are some new stuff. Now we can import Houdini assets. We have in our OTOs Houdini table, and we can now drag it into the scene, and we have our asset here. But this is basically something that is the same even if we use the film box, because we just have some kind of static asset, and if we want to change it, we need to tell our graphic guys to change it for us, and then we will re-import it. So let's say we want the table leg height parameterized, we want the width of the table parameterized. Let's play with it a little to show you the power of proceduralism and the interface that the Houdini engine offers without us going back and forward inside the graphic software. So let's open our properties, and here the parameters here, as we see, our digital asset now has 0 parameters. So let's put some there. So let's go to table sub, let's go to our legs, these are our legs, and the distance we extruded the legs. Let's put it into there. So let's call it leg size. So it will be a float parameter where there will be a range from .1 to 0. Other, let's say we want the width of the table parameterized. So let's put that there as well. So we have a size X of the table. Let's select the range. We don't really want the 0 scale table. So apply accept, and now the digital asset is saved again. Go back to Unreal, and we can rebuild the asset. This will basically re-import the asset and rebuild it from the digital asset on the hard drive. So we will rebuild the asset, and as you can see in Houdini parameters, we now see our 2 parameters that we put into the digital asset interface. And now we can basically change the leg size, and the asset will be modified based on the change parameter. We can even change the width of the table, no problem. So if you want multiple tables, different heights and different width, we don't really need to bother our graphics department, and we can they can just provide us with all these parameters, and we can build all these different tables just with the parameters. So let's play with it a little bit more. Go back to Houdini. Let's say we want to parameterize the, for example, if we put multiple rows there, what we will do, we will just split the grid. And as you can see, since we used the grid for our copy node as well, we will get multiple legs. So we can do that if we wanted to. We can have really many legs. We can just get it and parameterize it as well, so why not? Let's go to geo type properties, and just parameterize that as well. Okay, so we want rows. We click apply and go into Unreal and rebuild the asset. We now have the rows property, and we can have table with multiple legs as well, as many as we need, basically. If we put one, the grid will obviously be just a line, so nothing will get generated at the top. So we should put a range on that to just have at least two rows. And this looks really simple, but I think you already know that it's really powerful, because we can using this approach we can generate assets that will spawn chairs, even using the copy node or some kind of randomizers. We can generate random meteors just using a random seed, sending a random seed from the engine as well. So it's really huge, and these assets can be interconnected. So one asset can be used as an input into other asset, or you can even create curves using a curve. For example, I'm not going into that because we are already over 20 minutes in our tutorial. If someone is interested in that, I can do another tutorials. For example, we can use a curve as an input for our table. So it would generate, the asset would be generated, the tabletop, from a curve, not from a grid, from a rectangle. So you would just specify a curve here inside Unreal, and it will be used to generate the tabletop and put like in all the points of the curve. And basically you can generate any kind of table there. You can generate some kind of fence using that. Just go out and check out the Houdini Engine YouTube videos. There's some amazing stuff people are doing with this. You can use another assets as an input into this. For example, you have assets created in Maya, and you just put that in as an input into a Houdini asset that will use it and spawn it. I saw whole cities randomly generated using a Houdini digital asset, spawning all these third-party assets into a correct position with some kind of layouts as well. So it's really huge when it comes to asset creation. And as I think it were guys from Ubisoft that said that something that took them 2 to 3 days now take them like 3 to 5 minutes, which is huge. And a lot of the repetitive tasks can be offsetted using this. They can be just basically parameterized, so no need to go there and do the boring repetitive stuff, when you can parameterize your assets and generate the whole levels using these assets. Then you can obviously cook them, bake them into blueprints and stuff like that. So you can generate them basically. At the moment, Houdini Engine is working at editor time. It's not working at runtime. So you will not be able to parameterize this when the game is running. So they're working on it. At least they said on their forum that the plan is for Houdini Engine to work at the runtime as well. But doesn't really matter at the moment. This is huge for asset creation, and I saw games that use like 3 to 5 assets that are parameterized and are generating whole levels with just these few assets. And if there are any questions, the feedback is always welcome. And as well, if there is some kind of interest in the future devcasts, what I should talk about, I'm all ears, so you can just shoot me an email. And for us, that's all, guys, for now.